Big Mouth Season 3 is finally here, bringing with it new monsters, new puberty problems, and insanely catchy new songs. We're psyched to pick back up with Nick, Andrew, and the gang, especially after the total disaster nightmare that was the end of that Valentine's Day special. I had some idea of what this season would hold for Nick and Andrew, but there were so many unexpected zany aspects of the show that I never could have guessed, and I'm so excited to talk about it with y'all! I'm Whitney Van Laningham, and today we're talking Big Mouth Season 3.
Oh, yeah.
Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to our super nerd sponsor, John Carmack! Thanks to heroes like John, we're able to bring you reviews, live shows, and more. Want to join our army of nerds to unleash chaos into the multiverse? Click the link in the description box to check out our Patreon and see if any of our donation tiers work for you. We'll thank you with blooper reels, behind-the-scenes looks, and more. As always, the best way to support Nerdwire is to share our videos, make sure you're subscribed, and tell all your friends. Now on to Big Mouth! Okay, you know the drill. We'll do a spoiler-free recap before we dive into spoilers and deeper discussions about the show. And if you need a refresher for Big Mouth Season 1 and 2, plus the V-Day special, we've got you covered. Check out the video I made recapping those episodes before you continue with this one. While we're on the topic of spoilers, this season does have some Game of Thrones spoilers in Episode 7, so if you're not caught up with the Red Wedding and care about spoilers, skip the Duke Ellington episode. That being said, the Duke episode is one of the best this season, and we'll get into that later. Also, for those of you being drawn in by the Hormone Mistress and the Queer Eye cameos featured in the promo for this season, I think it'll help your viewing experience to know that these are backloaded in the season. Season 3 is the wildest season yet, and pushes the envelope of humor as far as Netflix will let them get away with. Perhaps this is because by 3 seasons in, it's fair to expect that viewers who don't enjoy the cruder aspects of the show have already stopped watching. Or maybe it's because Netflix has already signed on for 3 more seasons, and that freedom from cancellation has unfettered the darker jokes from the writer's room. There are even constant jokes at Netflix's expense, which lends credence to the theory that Kroll & Co. are pulling 0 punches this year. That said, if you're off-put by the nudity and sexual aspects of the show, some of the earlier episodes might offend your sensibilities. I personally am not too bothered by how Big Mouth uses animation to tackle otherwise taboo subjects, but if you've ever been on the hashtag cancel Big Mouth train, this season is not for you. If you believe that Big Mouth is able to tell stories that other television shows can't and won't touch with humor and educational finesse, then Season 3 doesn't disappoint. Like last season's The Planned Parenthood show, several episodes take the time to demystify sexual and social subjects that real-life education is too shy and prudish to teach. In true Big Mouth fashion, it left me wishing that a show like this existed when I was younger. Last season, there was so much GD toxic masculinity that I had no idea how the show would ever recover. I mean, in the last episode we watched, Andrew pushed a guy out of a wheelchair because he couldn't handle the fact that someone else was stealing his crush. Plus, after all the stuff that went down with the Shame Wizard in Season 2, there were a lot of unanswered questions. What would happen to Coach Steve? Would Jessie learn how to manage her depression? Would Jay actually be able to follow through with his vow of abstinence? Luckily, this season answers some of those questions and more. Once again, the creators peppered in real-life issues into the show, like how to navigate coming out to your friends and family, the potential sexist undertones of student dress codes, and for some reason, what to do if your cousin starts coming on to you at a family reunion. While some of this season's topics have been done before, such as addiction to technology and masturbation, Big Mouth really delves into more mature storylines this time around. For example, we're introduced to a scenario in which a teacher behaves inappropriately with a student and what to do if you're another kid who notices the abuse. Like in real life, we see some kids struggling to adapt to these more mature situations, while others continue to flounder in a modern age where neo-Nazi support groups are only a Jujul search away. Nick learns valuable lessons about being an ally to women, while Andrew struggles with his epic failure to communicate in a healthy way with his peers. I love that this season shows the different paths that real kids can take at this age. You can either learn to be supportive of those around you, or you can keep trying to find ways to justify your own selfish actions. Really, my only true issue with this season is that some of the plot lines and characters from the previous seasons are left hanging in the background. This season focuses primarily on the interactions between the kids, so fans of the mythological aspects of the hormone monsters and their world seen at the end of Season 2 will be left hoping that Season 4 includes more of these elements. Also, the ponytail killer barely comes up. How will I ever sleep soundly at night with a killer on the loose? Overall, this season is great, and without spoiling it for you, that's all I can really tell you. So if you haven't seen this season yet, it's time to hit pause on this video and fire up the old Netflix machine. Spoiler, 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 spoiler! You've been warned. Season 3 picks up in the wake of Andrew's previous social destruction. Although his hair has sort of started to grow back, he still doesn't really seem to understand exactly why what he did was wrong. For starters, he's still not sure Lars needs that wheelchair. And he doesn't seem to get that Missy needs some space after their whole ordeal. Looking for self-justification, he records a YouTube video of himself where he sounds a little borderline incel-y. Without actually calling Missy a Stacy or a Becky, he blames her for not liking him, even though he tried to be a nice guy. Listen, it's hard when the person you like doesn't like you back. Trust me, I have had my heart crushed 1,000 times out there. But you can't blame an entire gender for the things going on in your personal life. And Andrew learns a very valuable lesson that anti-women groups are a slippery slope to white supremacy groups. Obviously, Andrew getting invited to a neo-Nazi meeting via a comment on YouTube is a bit of a cartoon exaggeration. But this kind of thing is really happening in 2019. Younger guys are getting brainwashed by anti-women and anti-POC groups online all the time, and it's a trap that you gotta look out for. But back at school, the toxic masculinity isn't any better. Even adults like Mr. Lizer, Marty Glauberman, and Guy Bilzerian are rallying together to spread that boys will be boys nonsense around the school. After Jay gets distracted in woodshop class and cuts off the tip of Andrew's finger, the dads and the male guidance counselor decide that the girls' outfits are to blame. According to them, wearing tank tops and shorts is causing all of the boys in school to grow uncontrollable boners filled with misogyny and rage. The overall message we learn here is that you shouldn't sexualize children or police their wardrobes. Also, maybe teach boys to respect and support women no matter what they're wearing. It's okay to get a shorts boner every now and then. It's not okay to use some girl's tank top as an excuse to behave badly just because you have that boner. Just appreciate your boner and move on, my dudes. The dress code episode also teaches young women a valuable lesson too. There are all kinds of ways to be a feminist. You can be a prude or a slut or anything in between, and you still deserve the support of the women around you. And speaking of lessons we all learn in middle school, there are a lot of sexual discoveries this season. Surprisingly, one of my favorite characters from season 3 turned out to be Jay. His journey of discovery, acceptance, and challenges on the road to bisexual town are a surprisingly heartfelt part of the series. Up until now, Jay had been the gross punchline character for me. He was like a baby version of Coach Steve. But getting to know Jay better really opened up a lot of cool new aspects to his personality. For example, he finally makes his first girlfriend in Missy. He also finally gets to a point where he's able to come to terms with his sexuality. Jay identifies as bisexual. Sometimes all it takes is a queer Canadian magician Netflix show to help you come out. And in Jay's case, he has a ton of great bisexual role models. Not only do the ghosts of David Bowie, Whitney Houston, Prince, and Freddie Mercury teach him about the sexuality spectrum, but he finds a pansexual ally in the new girl at school, Allie. Jay and Allie's storyline delivers the perfect example of what it's actually like to be attracted to multiple genders. And hey, folks of all gender and sexual identity have it rough coming out. But this specific conversation is about what happens when bi, pan, and other queer people reveal their truth. Being attracted to multiple genders gets a lot of flack, even from within the LGBTQ community. Some people just assume it's a stop on the way to being fully gay, while others think you're a greedy sex addict. The way the entire school over-sexualizes Allie when she reveals that she's pan is how a lot of straight and queer people treat pansexuals. And when you're a guy, it's a different kind of terrible. Instead of obsessing and over-sexualizing Jay, his guy friends act like he's weird for wanting to F them. Come on. Just because you're bi or pan doesn't mean you want to bang all your friends. And all genders deserve to be treated with the same kind of respect, regardless of sexual identity. This season also delves deeper into Matthew's sexuality as he experiences his first real relationship with a boy. It's really sweet to see Matthew discovering what it's like to like a boy who likes you back. The weirdest relationship explored this season is between Nick and his cell phone. Homeboy is addicted. To be honest, we've seen this lesson in media 100 million times before. Oh, a teenager gets addicted to technology. Oh no. What Big Mouth does differently is portray Nick in an actual relationship with his phone. And yeah, it's bizarre, but it gets the point across. Speaking of the most bizarre lesson that I did not think we had to learn, don't kiss your cousin. Despite the fact that Nick and eventually his entire family all try to intervene on Andrew's burgeoning crush on his cousin, he still manages to get a few dick pics out there into the ether. Gross. Big Mouth really likes to push boundaries, but I don't know. Even this storyline felt like a lot to me. This season brings a couple of unique standout episodes and brand new characters that we have to talk about. First up, we gotta say how amazing that Duke Ellington episode was. How do I even put this into words? It is so incredibly special that Nick Kroll and the other creators chose to bring such a rich personal story to this format. How many great stories like Duke Ellington losing his virginity are lost to the sands of time? Even though he's a hilarious part of the show, Duke Ellington had a fascinating life, and I'm not sure if I ever would have known this much about him if not for this show. I believe this episode exists because great stories need to be told. And damn, this is a great story. Duke Ellington basically does an early 1900s version of Definitely Maybe. His ghost weaves a winding tale of all the women who inspired his sexual awakening and his simultaneous lust for jazz. What's more fun than listening to someone describe the epic story of how they lost their virginity? Back in reality, the guys from Queer Eye are here to make over Coach Steve's life. God damn it, I love this cameo. JVN actually manages to make Coach Steve look so good that he gets his job as coach back. Ugh, we love a good hair moment. Anthony tries his best to teach Steve how to cook, but ends up being kidnapped by a flock of seagulls. It's so random, but low-key, the hardest I've laughed in a while is at Anthony trying to tame wild birds. But even though Tan gives him a new outfit and Karamo teaches him the value of saying no, the best part is when Bobby comes in and says this.
So guys, while you were cutting Steve's hair, telling him how he feels, and buying him a shirt, I renovated his entire home.
Wow!
Missy's hormone mistress also finally appears, just in time for her to score the lead role in the middle school musical version of the movie Disclosure. Weird choice, but okay. Missy's monstress turns out to be super duper kinky and totally helps her realize the power in her sexuality. She and Lars end up spatting because he's not into her newfound empowerment. So she turns to Nick, who really responds to her new attitude. The two of them end up making out, which is a big puberty problem because Andrew sees the whole thing. As we already know, Andrew is really sensitive when it comes to who likes Missy, so he feels super betrayed when his best bud hooks up with his ex. To be fair, I get it. It goes against the guy code. But for the most part, Nick has been a really good friend to Andrew. He's stuck by him through all of his toxic behavior and has even tried to help educate him on how to be a better person. But Andrew, full of hormones and rage, decides that he and Nick shouldn't be friends anymore. Their best friend fight leads to the second most notable episode of the season, the Superhero Lab. At first, I was a little worried when I saw a glimpse of it in the trailer, because it was like, oh great, another dumb superhero thing for me to get burnt out on. But once again, the creators knocked it out of the park. Andrew is Mr. Invisible, a kid with the power to fart himself unseen. Jay is the last cumbender, and Nick has Ant-Man Giant Man powers as Big Dick Boy. Jessie, as the Scarlet Truther, finds out that her mom is planning on moving them to the city over the summer, which totally blows. Missy, though, has arguably the coolest powers. Her new hormone mistress makes her go full storm as the Hurricane. The episode uses their powers as a vehicle for what's really going on. Nick kissed Missy, Missy cheated on Lars, and Andrew is pissed at Nick for betraying him. The episode ends with Nick going off to summer camp alone after a big fight with Andrew. Andrew basically calls him a terrible friend and decides they need some space. Obviously, Nick is heartbroken over losing his best friend, but this is definitely a textbook middle school fight. Hopefully the two of them will be able to patch things up in season 4. But as Stranger Things taught us, a lot can happen in a summer. Was this season a little too much with the whole incest/sexually active middle schoolers through line? Yes. But were the songs amazing? Also yes. The characters we did dive deeper on turned out to be full of surprises, but this means that other characters were left in the shadows this season. Also, come on, Big Mouth, we don't need another life lesson about how we're all a slave to our devices. We get it. Overall, though, I loved season 3, and I can't wait to see what goes down in season 4. Will Nick and Gina ever repair their friendship? Will Nick and Andrew? Is Jessie even gonna be in season 4 if she doesn't return to Bridgeton Middle School? What the hell happened to the ponytail killer, and why was he only mentioned once? I am a true crime addict, Big Mouth. I need to know who the killer is. I had the best time watching Big Mouth Season 3, but I want to know what you guys think in the comments. Talk to me about your favorite moments, and definitely tell me what your middle school superpower would be. Like and subscribe to Nerdwire, click to the left of my face for more videos, and seriously, watch out for sinkholes in Florida. They'll get you.